Okay. Hi. Um, hello, hello. Um, we're going to be moving on to our next workshop, which is Chatbook. Um, I don't know. We already went over these, I think. So, okay. Um, if you go to weblab.is/example right now, you should be able to see our example website, which has a chat functionality here. And I can chat with anybody, or I guess I can chat with everybody here. And if I type here, I think in theory, why can I not scroll here? Oh, okay. In theory, yeah, I'm seeing everybody's chat messages live kind of. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Our goal is basically to set up this live chat feature in the next 2 workshops. The workshop that we're going to be doing right now is kind of more of a review of everything that we've learned so far in React. And then in the next workshop, we're going to be covering how to incorporate sockets into the chat so that it actually has like a live updating feature, like you see here. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So yeah, the end product of this workshop will look pretty similar to the Catbook feed actually, except we're going to be moving a lot quicker through all the steps, and we're going to be building all the front end and the back end in a single workshop. So it'll be a little bit more conceptual and also a little bit just faster moving basically. Yeah, so before we get started, maybe take a few moments to just jot down how might you just design the componentry for a chat, a live chat, something like this. Where would you split up the page, and then what kind of components might you need to display the chat onto the screen like that? If you want to discuss or write it down or whatever you want, draw it out, do whatever you want. Yeah, I'll give a bit of time. As you can see, we have an all chat here where you can chat with everybody, and then you can also chat with individual users as well. So hopefully we can incorporate that functionality too. Yeah. So hopefully you spent a little bit of time doing that. This is what our componentry looks like right now, with a feed, profile, and a not found page, as well as a nav bar. This is what the componentry for our chatbook is going to look like. We'll have a chat list, chat, and then underneath those we'll have single user, single message, and new message, which we'll explain in just a bit. Yeah. So the front end plan is that chatbook will divide into a chat list and a chat. The chat list is where you can select which chat you want to be typing to or look at, and then chat will contain the actual chat messages, and then yeah, chat list will have single user underneath it, where you can select which one you want. Chat itself will have single message components to represent each message, and then a new message component for you to be able to type in messages to the chat. Cool. And then our back end plan. Yeah, so we haven't really, so far, when we've been writing API requests, we've kind of given to you guys what we want to do with all of them. So this time, we'll take a little bit of time and think about how you would actually want to design these API requests to kind of serve the correct information or serve all the necessary information to the client, and also do what the client wants to do for posting a message. So yeah, so take a moment and think about what do we need to pass into rec.query and rec.body, and then maybe what API requests need to return to the front end, if anything. Zoom audio. What's going on? Okay. Oh. Turn off my audio. Hello. How do I turn off the Shit. Okay, wait. I can maybe. Oh, okay. Actually, this works. Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go. No, this is not. I'm sorry. Is it because the mic is like double red? Huh? Wait, it's like I have my mic on my iPad and I have my volume off on my computer right now. Huh? Yeah, but I don't know how to turn my volume off on my iPad. Does that work? Huh? Oh, disconnect from audio? Okay. Hello? Okay, cool. All good. Okay. Yeah, so going back to this, for /chat, we're just going to need a recipient, because if we're communicating with somebody, then we're going to need the person that we're communicating with, basically. So if we're like looking at all chat, we need to like be like, oh, I'm asking for like the all chat messages. We won't need this in workshop 6 because we'll be focusing on the chat component, and so we'll only be doing the all chat feature. But next workshop, we will be incorporating this. And then post for post, we'll have to pass in the message that we're actually posting in, and this will happen in rec.body. And what we would like for the post request to do is to update all the users that, like, hey, like a message has been posted. Like when you post to the all chat, like ideally you want all the users to be like, all the users to hear from the server somehow. Like, oh, some message has been posted. We won't be able to incorporate this functionality yet without sockets, but we'll be doing that in workshop 7. So for now, we're not going to be returning anything. Cool. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about is the data representation. Generally, before you like start like writing any code for, especially for passing in props into any of your functions, you want to like kind of think about how you're representing the data that you're passing in. And there's potentially a lot of different ways of doing this. Even for the website that we're creating right now, there's probably like dozens of ways of representing each of these like message objects, or representing a chat, representing a user, representing messages. But the way that we're going to choose to represent each of these is for chats, we're going to represent them using a list of messages in the form of an array of message objects, and then a recipient, which is who we're chatting with. And then for user objects, we're going to need an ID and a name. I think that one is pretty self-explanatory. And then message objects is a little bit complicated-ish. We have a sender and a content, and the confusing thing about this is maybe that if the sender is us, then that means that we're sending to like whoever we're chatting with, and then if the sender is like the other person, then that would mean that like they're sending whatever message to us or to all chat, but like one of the two. Yeah. Cool. So we're just gonna, I think, only do step 1 today. But yeah, so we're gonna start by going to our code and doing git fetch, git reset hard, and then git checkout workshop 6, step 1. Okay. Cool. I already have both npm start and npm run dev running in separate terminals. So if I go to localhost 5173, you'll see that at home I can see a lot of different stories. And then chat, I currently see nothing because if we go into if we go into chatbook.jsx, we're currently returning an empty component, so we wouldn't see anything yet. Yeah, so currently it's empty, but the display that we would like is for step 1 is to display the single messages in here, and then the new message at the bottom. Yeah, so we're just going to focus on the chat window. Yeah, so what props need to be passed down from app.js? We're going to need to pass down the user ID into chatbook so that like they know, chatbook knows like what user to show the messages for. And then passing down into chat, like chat needs to have like something that represents a chat, which we kind of went over already. We're going to need a chat data object here. Yeah, so chat's going to need to receive a chat data object from chatbook, and then single message will need a message object in order to render its information, and then finally user object, a new message. The new message component is going to need a user object so that it knows like which user it can post the message from. Cool. So we've broken it up. We've broken step 1 up into 6 different substeps. So substeps 1, 2, and 3 are in the lowest level, implementing new message and single message. And then 4, 5, and 6 are just kind of filling in with like the subcomponents basically. Cool. So you can kind of see where everything is if you just search for to-dos in the sidebar. So you can see step 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. I'm going to take like maybe around 4 minutes to for you to kind of do steps 1, 2, and 3 yourselves. So I'll give you guys a bit of time. Steps 1 and 2 are to implement the new message component, and then step 3 is populating single message given the props that it's passed down. And again, you can see you can see here that we've outlined the single message props to be a single message, a message object, and you can refer back to the slides for what we defined for a message object, or you can look in here where we have this definition here, has a sender and a content. Yeah, so I'll give you a few minutes to do that. And feel free to call up on the queue if you have any questions. I think I'll actually just move on because we don't have that much time left. Okay, yeah, so our first step is to, our first few steps is going to be implementing new message. So here, step 1.1 is to populate new message. We have the new post input component already, which we've been using for new comment and new story. So the shared component allows us to implement a new message pretty quickly. So we'll use the new post input component. And then we'll pass in default text of new message. And then on our onSubmit, we need to call our send message function. So yeah, there we go. And then we need to implement send message. And for now, we'll just log it to the console. So we'll take in a value message, and then we'll just console.log the message. So, okay, yeah. So continuing where we left off yesterday, we talked about a few things. First of all, our goal is to replicate what is at weblab.mit/example. Within this workshop and the next workshop, the chat functionality. So the first step of that we need to think about is our data representation. So how do we represent users, chats, and messages? And what we came up with is the following representation, where we have a user represented by an ID and a name, a message represented by the person who sent the message and the content of the message, and then finally, chat data is what we need to represent a chat. And for this, we need a list of an array of messages, and then we need to know the recipient, which is basically who we're talking to. So actually, I think the next slide might be better to explain this. Yeah, and then the second part we did was to basically split up our front end and look at what the component tree should look like. So underneath the chat entire page, we have chat list and chat. Underneath chat, we have the single message component, which displays a single message, and then the new message component, which allows us to post a new message. And that's the side of the part that component tree that we're focusing on for this workshop. To think about the props that we need to pass into each component, we kind of need to think about what each component needs in order to render what's inside of it. So for the new message object, we need to know who am I talking to, basically. So once you send a message, you should be able to know the server needs to know who you're actually sending that message to. So the prop we need to pass in is this user object with an ID and a name. In order to render a single message, we need to know the sender of the message as well as the content of the message. So for the single message object, the prop will just be a message object. And then finally, for chat, the chat needs to pass down chat needs to maintain a list of single messages as well as a new message. So in order to do that, it needs a user object to pass down to the new message as well as a list of message objects to create the single messages, basically. Cool. Great. And then finally, we have the backend, and we have two API routes that we need to implement for our backend. The first one, GET request for the how we get messages and chats from the backend. And then the second one is a post request for us to be able to post a message to the backend. Yeah, so we can reference everything that we just talked about in weblab.is/chatbookdocs. You'll be able to see like everything that we talked about here. And this will also be helpful for the next workshop, so you can feel free to just keep this open for like the rest of this workshop and next workshop as well. Yeah, okay. So let's go to workshop 6, step 2v2, and open up localhost 5173. So this is kind of where we left off yesterday. If we go to chat, there's a conditional rendering that we've set up so that it tells you to log in before using Chatbook. Now, after signing in, we have, we can see the chat. Wait. Interesting. Hold on. I don't know if I should be seeing all of this right now. Oh, yeah, sorry. That would make sense. All right, there we go, sorry. Okay, cool. Yeah, so currently we have some hard-coded messages in here, courtesy of Abby. And if we open up our console and we type in a message to our console, we can see it printed out to our console. There. Cool. So currently, our chat feature is missing a few things. First of all, we are missing the ability for the front end to change based on the state, which we'll do in step 2 of the workshop. We're missing any communication between the front end, the back end, and the database. So we'll do that in step 3. And then we're also missing the ability for users to post messages to the database, and that's what we're going to do in step 4. And then finally, we also want live chat updating for users once other users have posted, and individual chats. And that's going to be done in the next workshop. Yeah, so step 2, make sure you're on this branch. We're going to be adding a state, which is going to be pretty quick. But yeah, so currently we have we always feed the same hard-coded messages to the chat component. So let's change it so that the data prop is a state that we pass in. So I'll just give you guys like a few minutes to do this. But all we want to do is convert the prop that we're passing into chat right now into a state. And if you don't remember what we're supposed to pass into chat, you can look at either the chatbook docs to remember what the chat data type looks like, or you can just look at what we're currently passing into chat. Yeah. Cool. I'll give you guys a few minutes to do that. Okay, do people need more time for this? Maybe like fingers up for a number of minutes if you need more time. Okay, cool. I think this one is kind of just like a warm-up, so it shouldn't take us too long. What we want to do is just turn this prop into a state. So let's copy this over. And we just want to define a state, which we'll call active chat. And then we use the useState hook. And we can just copy paste this in here to initialize our active chat to this all chat, or this chat data object. Yeah. And then we can just pass it in here to active chat. And hopefully we're all good. Cool. Great. Yeah. Okay, so now this is going to allow us to like basically update whatever's in our chat using like data that either comes from the back end or comes from our, like when we like post a new message on the front end as well. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, let's get on the same page. Let's check out step 3 v2. And then our next step is going to be storing and getting messages. So this is going to be an interaction between the front end, the back end, and MongoDB. In step 3.1, we'll add a new Mongoose schema for messages, which we'll do in message.js. Step 2, we'll implement the /API/chat endpoint in API.js, and then steps 3 and 4, we'll call the /API/chat endpoint from the front end. Yeah, so our first step is to add a new Mongoose schema for messages. The backend needs a way to store the messages in the database. And this might not look the exact same as the way that the front end stores messages. Why? Because the front end only stored, in the documentation, we can see that the front end only stored sender and content. And we're going to need more than just sender and content if we want to store a message in the database, because if I sent a message to like Kenneth, then the database needs to store that I sent it and also that Kenneth received it. I don't want to like display my message to Kenneth to like every other like user of the chat, right? So we need both a sender and a recipient. Well, we've kind of done this already in the documentation, or like decided how we were going to store the data. So if we just look at, if we just look at the documentation here, the way that we're going to store these, the messages in the database, is we're going to need a sender, a recipient, a timestamp, and the content of the message. Yeah. So again, I'll give you guys a few minutes to do this step 2. It's going to be in message.js, and we just want to define a message schema for with the fields that are in the documentation. So kind of reference the documentation and then just make a message schema here that matches up with that. Cool. I'll again give you guys a few minutes to do that. Okay, yeah, how many more minutes do people need? Like maybe if you need like more minutes, just raise your fingers. Okay, you can also just follow along as I just do it now, in case you haven't gotten it already. No worries. Actually, I'll live code it first. Okay, so we're going to need these 4 fields, so we can actually first just start off by copy pasting this in. So content, we don't actually have to change at all, but for sender and recipient, we're going to have to look at the definition for user object, which is also already done for us here in the object types. So we have the user object needs an ID and a name field. So we'll do this here, and then similarly, yeah, thanks. Cool. Yeah, and then similarly for the recipient, we're going to do the same thing. And then for the timestamp, it'll just be type date, but we'll also like set default. Yeah, so this will just make sure that we default to the current time if no time is given. Great. Yeah. So, yeah, any questions here before we move on? Cool. Okay. Next step is 3.2, which is implementing the get/API/chat endpoint in api.js. This is going to be pretty similar to what we did already in workshops 3 and 4, where we had the backend responding to the front-end request and also communicating with the database in the process. Yeah. Okay. So sorry, I'm on the wrong branch again. Okay. Cool. Okay, yeah, so I'll just do this up here. I'll just live code it here. So what that'll look like, we define a GET request using router.get. And we can omit the /API part because we're already in api.js. And then for our callback function, we will be getting a query from the client, which is in the form of rec.query, and this query will just be a recipient ID. So what we'll do is we'll define we'll pull that parameter using rec.query. Recipient ID. And then what do we call it again? Message. Okay. Yeah, so we'll look in the message database for anything that matches this ID. So here we'll just need to make sure that the recipient's ID matches this, and then this will give us a response to the database query, and then we just want to send this to the front end using the res.send. So res.send messages here. Cool. Yeah, sorry, I forgot that we were only doing all chats for the time being. So, yeah, for now we'll just replace this with all chat. But cool. Any questions so far? We've kind of done the part where the backend interacts with the database and then responds to the client. So our next step is to do the part where the client actually asks for this data from the backend. Questions? Okay. Cool. Yeah. So the next step is to call the /API/chat endpoint, which is going to be in chatbook.jsx. Here we have two to-dos. We kind of just want to implement the load message history function, and then we'll call the load message history in the use effect. Yeah. So for now, we just have this endpoint with parameters, and the parameters is just the recipient ID. So we'll retrieve the recipient ID by looking at whatever our state is right now for active chat. So currently, our active chat is initialized to this recipient, and so we need the ID of this recipient. Yeah. The ID of all chat is just the string all chat, but ideally we'd want to pull the correct ID of the recipient of active chat. So what we can do is take our active chat state and then take the recipient of it, and then from there we can grab its ID. And then we need to figure out what we want to do after we get the response from the backend. And because the response is just a list of messages, we just want to set our active chat correctly so that the messages reflect the messages that we're getting from the server. So we get this messages response, and we can just set active chat to recipient should stay the same as whatever our current recipient is. And then messages is the messages response that we get. And now, in this use effect, all we have to do is just call load message history. Let's check it out on the front end and see if everything's working. leave the solution up here. Let me know if you have any questions, but I'll run through what's going on the front end just right now in the meantime. So we have like a database set up just by default, but if you have your own database correctly set up in the .env, then you'll see like your own database reflected here. But here we have, we can see like we're chatting with all chat, and if we type a message into here, it'll pop up on our console. So far, we haven't yet done the part where we're actually posting the request to the database. That's going to be the next step. But at the very least, we're able to communicate with the database and grab all the messages from it at this point. Cool. OK. Yeah, so now we're going to do the same thing for post requests. And I'll give you guys probably some time to do this yourselves this time, since I walked through the GET request. So make sure you're on the step 4 v2 branch. And I'll walk through the steps really quickly for what we need to do. So step 4.1 is going to be implementing the post/API/message endpoint in api.js. And then step 4.2 is going to be calling that endpoint from new post input.jsx. You can see in here, this is the to-do for 4.1, and then new post input. We have to basically implement the send message function for step 4.2, and it'll look kind of similar to new comment and new story. So yeah, now I'll give you guys a bit of time to do this yourselves. A few hints for step 4.1. Rec.body will be a message object, which is what we're getting from the front end. And we're going to need a sender, a recipient, and a content to post to the database. If you remember here, our message schema has a sender, recipient, and content. The timestamp we don't need to fill in ourselves, but we do need to figure out how we're getting the sender, how we're getting the recipient, and how we're getting the content. Some of those will come from the front end, but some of them might not. So yeah, I'll give you guys a few minutes to think about that and try to implement the API request yourselves. And yeah, let us know if you have any questions as well. If you guys are still working on it, no worries. I wanted to poll to see like how you guys were thinking about each of these. So maybe like we'll do like a quick like open hand, close hand. Like let's do open hand if you think that sender will be coming from the front end, and then close hand if you think that sender is going to be like coming from our back end instead. Do people have any ideas? Okay. Okay, let's do the same thing for recipient. Do we think that recipient is going to be coming from the front end or from the back end? Open hand for front end, and then close hand for back end. Okay. Cool. And then yeah, let's do lastly for content. Do we think content is front end, or content is coming to us from the client, or is content something that the back end fills in itself? Cool. Yeah, okay. I think everybody agreed on the first two. Sorry, the last two for recipient and content. The database can't, or sorry, the backend can't really know like who you're sending the message to, or like what content you're putting into the message, unless they know or unless the client tells them exactly what these are. But for the sender, the backend actually like kind of fills this in itself, kind of gets it from the front end, but essentially what's going on is the front end's session that it stores with the backend from auth will be used to fill in the sender field. So the backend will kind of be doing this itself. Yeah. So that means that recipient and content will come from rec.query, but sender will be a little bit different. I'll do it right here. So we need to do router.post and /message. Yeah, so we just need to post a message to the database. We can kind of copy here what we've done in comment. Instead, we'll be creating a new message. So that'll look like this. And then afterwards, we want to save the new message. And we don't need to worry about sending it back to the server because we're going to be doing that in the next workshop. For now, we can just imagine that the server responds with silence. Yeah, so to fill in the fields, we need a sender, a recipient, and a content. The timestamp we don't need to fill in ourselves. So the content we can just get from rec.body. So rec.body will be a message object, and that will have a recipient and a content. So we can just define const message object equals rec.body. Now content we can just fill in with rec.body message object dot content. Recipient we can also fill in using message object dot recipient. Should have the correct formatting as already. And then sender, we'll need to fill in the ID and name separately. So before that, we have a middleware implemented which fills in the rec.user with a user object. So in auth.js, we've set up a way for the essentially our rec.user to be populated by whatever is stored in our current session. So here, we'll just do rec.user _ID, and then our name is going to be the name of the rec.user as well. Cool. Great. Yeah, so just to recap, the recipient and content are coming from rec.body, and then the sender is coming from rec.user. Moving on, we're going to be doing 4.2. Now we're going to be calling the /API/message endpoint from the front end. This will just be in new post input. And here we have a value, and the value is the content of the message that we want to post. And then we want to build a message object. So we should think about what fields this message object has. And then we'll call the endpoint using the post function. Cool. Again, I'll give you guys a few minutes to do that. Let us know if you have any questions. Yeah. Okay, I will be doing this step up on the board so everybody can see. We want to just call the post function with this endpoint, and the field that we need to feed in is a message object. Value is essentially like the content of our message. So we can start by filling in the content, which is just value. And then the other thing that a message object needs is this sender. Oh, The other thing that the /API/message thing needs, I think I might have confused it a little bit, but we do need a content and a recipient here. And the recipient's going to be a user object. For now, we'll just fill in the recipient with all chat. Okay, yeah. So for now, we'll just send every message that we have to all chat, since we haven't implemented individual chats yet. But hopefully now we should be able to post messages to the server. We probably won't get a response yet, but how this will basically work, hopefully. Oh, yeah, I'm seeing people's already. I'm kind of talking into the void right now because I'm not getting a response back from the server. But if I refresh, then hopefully I do see my message here. Yeah, cool. Yay. So just to recap, what we did was we implemented this API request in /message, and then on the left-hand side, we are posting to, we're calling the post request with the contents of the, we're feeding in a content and a recipient. And then on the right-hand side, we're receiving this post request from the client, and we have, the client feeds us in the content and the recipient of the message, and we need to fill in from our side the sender using the rec.user field of the request. Cool. And then we save the message to the database so that it persists. Yeah. Okay. So here's the solution here. Yeah. Okay. So you can see the quote-unquote final product of the workshop if you just check out workshop 6 complete. And coming up, we're going to make Chatbook live update. So the server will be able to tell all the clients that it just received a message, and then all the clients will be able to see the message directly, like on the client. For now, as you can see, if I just like type something in here, I will not get anything back from the server, nor will I see my message posted here. But we will be working on that in the next workshop. Yeah. It's kind of a hassle to have to refresh every single time you want to see something. So yeah. Any questions before we break and transition? Okay. Yeah, we'll be transitioning then.
Everyone can take a 2-minute stretch break while we transition to our next lecture.